You won't believe how many Nvidia RTX 4070 Ti are in stock today. Nobody truly bought them. I guess you could say the consumers won by not buying something. That's kind of a sad statement. I mean, look at this guy. He looks pretty happy. This is an Nvidia fan that found out nobody bought the RTX 4070 Ti. Take a look at how gleeful he is. Generally, you're not going to be happy if something doesn't sell or care, but people are really fed up with the price of these GPUs. And if you agree that GPU prices are too high, remember to smash that like button and subscribe. That way we get this information out there and more people are aware. Here, we kind of take a look almost on the street sometimes, going to stores and seeing the sentiment of people that are buying these GPUs, or in the case of the 4070 Ti, clearly not buying them. Nobody wants to pay this much money. Look, $799. Look how many in stock are still at this Micro Center. 25 plus. I'm not even showing you the $1,049 Strix. Okay, I love the cooler. I love the design. But why is it so much more money than even the already expensive $799? Do they really just expect people to fork over that much money for basically no difference, a nicer, cooler, or aesthetic? Really not fair, and that explains why nobody is buying. If the $799 model was completely sold out, you could say, all right, that's kind of like the breaking point, but the breaking point is not $799, 25 plus, and this is just one store that I'm taking a look at. And now remember, Micro Center, not everybody has them around them, but it's still a decent barometer of what's going on in the GPU market. For example, you're not going to find a bunch of 4090s laying around because everybody is buying 4090s. Doesn't matter if you're at a local Micro Center or, nationwide or in different places. Aside, of course, from in Europe and different countries around the world where the price is considerably higher on the 4090 and people haven't bought it. The US is going to be a little bit different here. I always like to mention that for my, European viewers, my viewers in Australia and other parts of the world, because often the markets there are different and they have much higher pricing. It's really funny. Sometimes I'll post the price that we think is really high. Like, for example, take that Strix, the 4070 Ti Strix at $1,049. For us in the US, we look at that and it's pretty ridiculous because you can basically walk into a Best Buy now and they have 4080 Founders Editions in stock. And some people have been using that coupon code. If you check a few videos of mine that I talked about it, and it comes out to like $1,079, which is basically the same price. And that is a much better deal. But in other countries, that same Strix may be like $1,400, $1,500 after all the VAT and the taxes are put on. So our scalper prices are sometimes cheaper than the retail prices in other countries. So we just have to be at least grateful for that, I guess. It could be even worse over here. But it really seems like the 4070 Ti is like the worst selling GPU that we've really seen in a very long time. I thought that the 4080 launch was bad, but in comparison, this one is much worse. This kind of reminds me of when Ryzen 7000 came out. I remember the first day at like Micro Center, nobody was there. I mean, look at even this post about the 4070 Ti. Somebody said only 6 of them sold at one of these stores. Keep in mind, on launch day, the 4090s on average sold per store like maybe 150, because that's around how much each store got, and they basically sold out within the first day or two. And that's a $1,600 GPU, practically twice the price for most models. And remember, the 4090 goes all the way up to $2,000 with that Strix, and that one was the first to sell out. So you can't say it's necessarily not people wanting to buy GPUs. It's just that the price and performance, especially as you get more in that high-end mid-tier where the 4070 Ti now rests, we can't call it a mid-tier GPU because it's $800. That's basically what the high end used to be. So people aren't really willing to stretch it that much. People were used to paying maybe $500 tops for like a 3070, and now we don't have a 3070. We have a 4070 Ti, and $800 is way too much. Here are a few reasons why. First, only 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and the memory bus is really severely limited, meaning it's not going to be nearly as good for 4K, and this GPU has the chops to do 4K if you view some other metrics, much like the 7900 XT and GPUs like that. But Nvidia is really pushing it as a 1440p card, which once again doesn't jive well with the price. If you want the best 1440p performance, $800 is definitely a lot to spend for a GPU when typically it would have been much less. I even posted a meme on one of the Facebook groups saying, here is the requisite photo of my 4070 Ti buckled into the seatbelt. You guys ever see that? When somebody is really happy that they bought a GPU, they're going to show a photo on Reddit or one of the forums, a seatbelt protecting the GPU, be it whatever GPU that they bought. And it's a pretty funny picture usually. I showed an empty, random car seat I found online with no GPU, and that kind of shows you the reality of the situation. The 4070 Ti, because of those VRAM limitations, because of the price being way too high, really is not an attractive GPU. But we do have to say a couple of things about it because, we have to be objective here. I can't just hate on it as a product because it does exist. People will buy it. Even a couple of people, I think maybe one or two, posted that they did buy it. And of course, no need to feel embarrassed about buying it. Maybe you need a GPU, and it does have merits. Like, it's not a terrible GPU. In fact, even Hardware Unboxed did some analysis that the value proposition of it is actually a lot higher than other GPUs at $799. The performance to the dollar that you're spending. It doesn't mean it's good because the GPU market in general is messed up and it went up a lot. So you got to keep that in mind. It's good in a market that's gotten really bad. But overall, if you're playing 1440p, it is going to give you some really good performance. It's $100 cheaper than the 7900 XT, which often it does get pretty close performance-wise with, ray tracing, traditional rasterization. You do have DLSS 3.0 in some games if it's supported. I know not everybody's a fan of this with the frame generation, Nvidia Reflex, but overall, I think it's a promising technology, and in some games, it definitely helps you push you over that edge. So if it improves in the future, you're going to have that next generation hardware already, especially if you paid $799 for it. And there's nothing else next generation that's that cheap, even though it's really overpriced. That's really the reality of the situation. It looks like Nvidia really wants to move whatever RTX 3000 that they had previously. Even in their slides, they show that these are high-end GPUs for the enthusiast gamer, the RTX 4000, and then they're going to show you the mainstream GPUs are still RTX 3000. So they want you to go to your retailer, and if you don't want to spend $799, maybe you're going to buy a 3060 Ti instead for like half the price, maybe a 3070 that's still in stock, or even a previous generation 3070 Ti. These may be hundreds of dollars cheaper than a 4070 Ti, and it's only when you get to the level of like a 3080 Ti or maybe a 3080 that the price gets uncomfortably close to the 4070 Ti. Somebody asked me, what should they buy, a 3080 Ti or a 4070 Ti if they're basically the same price? Well, at that point, it makes absolute sense to completely go for the 4070 Ti if you're already budgeting around that much, because the 3080 Ti only has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so you're not really making out any better. I think maybe the memory bus bandwidth might be a little better than on the 4070 Ti, but the amount is really very similar, and the 4070 Ti is probably going to at least meet the 3080 Ti in most rasterization because it beats the 3090 in many cases, and that's a little faster. And of course, in ray tracing, it's going to be better. And then you do have access to like DLSS 3.0, which that 3080 Ti won't have. And then, of course, it's more efficient. The TDP is going to be considerably lower than the 3090, 3080 Ti. You're going to be well below 300 watts, which is definitely pretty nice as well, aside from the fact it's a much newer GPU. But here, we're really stretching to justify the 4070 Ti in particular use cases. I just want to be completely broad and objective about it because, of course, when we say nobody buys it, some people will, and sometimes they have a valid reason for doing so. And at the end of the day, it's still a really good GPU for a lot of cases. Of course, it falls short with the VRAM and some issues with 4K, But overall, it's going to probably be pretty efficient, pretty cool, and there isn't much else in the market, which is another problem entirely because this is starting to seem really like a big GPU monopoly. Of course, it's harder to say go get an AMD GPU because first, the 7900 XT isn't any better of a value. In fact, it's probably worse, and it's $100 more expensive. And the XTX at $999 actually is a pretty good performance value, but the reference editions are, of course, having their problems with some coolers, and it's quite frankly difficult to find an XTX in stock. So that's going to be an entirely different issue. You can find 4070 Ti's all day, but the XTX has been a little bit harder to come by. So as you can see, GPU market not really in the best shape, but definitely people not buying. Maybe in the future, Nvidia will be forced to lower these prices. All right, guys, let me know what you think about the 4070 Ti. Are you seeing them in stock everywhere as well? You can check other places too, like Newegg and Best Buy still has them. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.